The September sun cast long shadows through the glass and steel canyon of downtown Chicago as Diana Martinez's Bentley purred to a stop in front of Blackwood Associates. The security guard tipped his hat as she stepped out, her Louboutins clicking against the polished concrete. At 45, Diana commanded attention not through loud demands but through the quiet confidence that came from 2 decades of turning corporate law into an art form. "Good morning, Mrs. Martinez," the lobby receptionist called out as Diana swept past, her charcoal Chanel suit a perfect complement to her silver-streaked black hair. Mr. Reynolds called about the merger documents. "Tell him they'll be on his desk by noon," Diana replied without breaking stride, her voice carrying the same assured tone that had won her countless negotiations. The morning light streaming through the 42nd floor windows caught the subtle smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Reynolds could wait, he always did, even though he was technically the senior partner. They both knew who really kept the firm's most valuable clients happy. Inside her corner office, Diana paused to take in the Chicago skyline. 20 years ago, she'd started in a cubicle with nothing but student debt and determination. Now, she had everything society said should make her happy named partner track at Chicago's most prestigious firm, a mansion in Lincoln Park, and a marriage that looked perfect in their annual Christmas cards. The irony wasn't lost on her that it had taken losing that last piece to finally feel truly in control. Mrs. Martinez, her assistant Sarah's voice came through the intercom. "Your 9 o'clock is early, and there's been another call from the dealership about the paperwork." "Send in the client," Diana responded smoothly, setting her briefcase on the mahogany desk. "And Sarah? Tell the dealership everything is proceeding exactly as planned." As Diana pulled out the merger documents, her fingers brushed against another folder, one containing photographs, bank statements, and enough evidence to destroy both a marriage and a reputation. But Diana hadn't built her career by acting rashly. Every case needed the right timing, the perfect presentation. Even now, she could hear her law professor's words: justice isn't just about being right, it's about being right at the right moment. The door opened, and Diana stood to greet her client, her professional smile masking the intricate machinery of plans set in motion weeks ago. Let Michael and his mistress play their games. Diana Martinez had learned long ago that true power wasn't in the quick strike, but in the patient positioning of pieces until victory was inevitable. "Now then," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk, "shall we discuss your company's future?" Diana had first noticed something was amiss 3 months ago, when Michael's credit card statements began showing repeated charges at Lakeview's most exclusive boutiques. Her husband had always been generous, but a $4,000 charge at La Perla wasn't his usual style. The following weekend, while he was supposedly at a developer's conference in Milwaukee, Diana had traced his phone's location to a boutique hotel in the Gold Coast district. She didn't confront him immediately. 20 years of corporate law had taught her the value of complete information. Instead, she hired Marcus, a private investigator who had helped the firm with corporate espionage cases. Within a week, she had a complete dossier on Ashley Peterson. Ashley was 28, a yoga instructor at an upscale studio in Lincoln Park where monthly memberships cost more than most people's car payments. She taught spiritual awakening through movement to bored socialites and posted daily Instagram affirmations about manifesting abundance. And attracting your destiny, her destiny, apparently involves sleeping with wealthy married men while preaching about karma. Diana remembered the first time she saw Ashley in person at Gibson's Steakhouse. She had deliberately chosen to have lunch there, knowing Michael often took clients to the restaurant. Ashley had been wearing a white dress that cost more than most paralegals made in a week, laughing at something Michael had said while her hand rested possessively on his arm. Diana had calmly finished her meal, left a generous tip, and begun formulating her plan. The financial records told the real story. Michael's real estate development company, once Chicago's rising star, was hemorrhaging money. The post-pandemic market hadn't been kind to commercial real estate, and Michael had over-leveraged himself trying to maintain appearances. He'd mortgaged their house, or tried to, until he discovered Diana's name was the only one on the deed. He'd drained his retirement accounts, maxed out credit cards, and finally turned to high-interest loans from increasingly dubious sources, all to keep Ashley draped in designer clothes and dreaming of the future he'd promised her. A future that, according to their text messages, included a house in the Hamptons, winters in St. Bart's, and a brand new Bentley Continental GT, the car Ashley had been not so subtly hinting about ever since she'd seen one at a charity gala. Diana almost felt sorry for the girl. Almost. Ashley wasn't the first young woman to mistake attention for affection, to believe that a married man's promises were worth more than his vows. But she had made one crucial mistake: she'd chosen the wrong man's wife to underestimate. The opportunity presented itself when Michael approached Diana about investing in a promising new development. His eyes couldn't quite meet hers as he explained how a show of success, perhaps a new luxury car, might help attract investors. Diana had agreed with carefully calculated enthusiasm, even suggesting the exact model Ashley had been coveting. The Bentley Continental GT would make quite a statement, she'd said, watching Michael's face for the flash of relief. I could use my personal savings account. After all, what's mine is yours, right, darling? Michael had jumped at the offer, not bothering to read the paperwork Diana had drawn up. He was too excited about finally being able to give Ashley the gift she'd been demanding. He didn't notice that the purchase agreement listed only Diana's name, or that the insurance documentation specifically excluded other drivers. Diana had then orchestrated the next phase with precision. She made sure Ashley overheard Michael's assistant discussing the car purchase at their usual workout class. Right on cue, Ashley had begun dropping hints about visiting Michael at work to surprise him. Diana had only needed to mention that her firm was hosting a charity luncheon, one that Michael would supposedly be attending, to set the final trap. The dealership had been instructed to contact Ashley directly about picking up her car, a special arrangement they believed had been made by a doting boyfriend. They would hand over the keys to an elated Ashley, who would undoubtedly want to show off her prize. And where better to flaunt it than at Diana's law firm, where she could rub her victory in the face of the wife she believed was clueless about the affair. As Diana reviewed the final preparations, she felt no anger, no bitter desire for revenge. This wasn't about punishment, it was about resolution. By the time she was finished, Michael would understand the cost of his choices, Ashley would learn a valuable lesson about karma, and Diana would emerge stronger than ever. She picked up her phone and sent a brief text to Marcus, everything in place for tomorrow. His response came quickly: all set. Ashley picked up the car an hour ago. She's already posted 3 Instagram stories about her surprise blessing from the universe. Diana smiled and turned back to her work. Tomorrow would bring enough drama for now. She had a merger to finalize. After all, the best plots were executed not with passionate fury, but with professional precision. And if there was one thing Diana Martinez knew how to do, it was close a deal. The weeks leading up to Diana's planned confrontation unfolded like a perfectly orchestrated legal strategy. Ashley's Instagram posts grew increasingly bold, shifting from vague spirituality quotes to thinly veiled references about upgrading your life and claiming what you deserve. Her latest post, a selfie in front of a luxury boutique, was captioned, "Sometimes the universe takes away a wife to make room for a queen. Level up, blessed by karma." Sarah, Diana's assistant of 7 years, placed another credit card statement on her desk. "Mrs. Martinez, there's been another charge at Gucci. $43,000 this time." Her voice carried the careful neutrality of someone who had witnessed enough high-stakes divorces to know when to stay professional. "Thank you," Sarah, Diana replied, adding the statement to her growing file. "Has Mr. Martinez called again about the investor meeting?" 3 times this morning. And Sarah hesitated. Ashley Peterson called, asking about the charity luncheon schedule. She seemed very interested in the guest list. Diana allowed herself a small smile. "I trust you told her exactly what we discussed." "Of course." "That Mr. Martinez would be attending as a major donor." Sarah paused. "The partners are starting to notice something's off with him." Mr. Blackwood asked if everything was all right after Michael missed the foundation board meeting. The mention of James Blackwood, the firm's founding partner, reminded Diana of their conversation the previous week. He had called her into his office, ostensibly to discuss a new client, but his concern had been personal. "Diana," he'd said, his voice carrying the weight of 30 years of friendship with both her and Michael, "I've known you too long to pretend I don't see what's happening. Whatever you're planning, just remember this firm stands behind you." The support of her colleagues had been subtle but unmistakable. Linda from corporate litigation accidentally forwarded her emails showing Michael's company had missed payments on 3 construction loans. Tax partner David Chen mentioned casually that Michael had inquired about liquidating his remaining assets. Even the junior associates seemed to close ranks around her, their loyalty to Diana far outweighing any relationship with her husband. Meanwhile, Michael's desperation grew visible to anyone paying attention. His once immaculate suits showed signs of wear, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Diana's sources reported he had begun approaching increasingly shady private lenders, offering personal guarantees at extortionate interest rates. "The car is killing him," Marcus reported during their weekly update. "Ashley's demands keep escalating. She's convinced herself the Bentley is just the beginning. Now she's talking about a summer home in Martha's Vineyard. Found some interesting searches on his laptop selling kidney black market and faking own death insurance fraud." Diana had almost laughed at that last bit. Michael had always been dramatic, but this was a new level even for him. She'd watched from her office window one afternoon as he paced the street below, arguing with someone on the phone. Even from 42 floors up, his gestures had radiated panic. Ashley's boldness grew proportionally to Michael's desperation. She began showing up at restaurants where she knew Diana dined, flaunting new jewelry or designer bags. She'd even started taking her yoga classes to the park across from Diana's office, leading her students through sun salutations while stealing glances at the building's upper floors. "She's getting sloppy," Sarah observed one morning, watching Ashley's outdoor yoga session. "Yesterday she tried to convince the security guard to let her up to your floor. Said she was a potential client." The security team, led by Tony, a former Chicago PD detective who had known Diana since her first year at the firm, had become an unexpected ally. "Don't worry," Mrs. M. had assured her. "Nobody gets up there without proper clearance, especially not yoga teachers with more Louis Vuitton than sense." The firm's dynamics shifted subtly as tension built. Diana noticed her colleagues' protective instincts emerging in small ways. Junior partner Rachel began scheduling lunch meetings with Diana in visible restaurants, making sure she was never alone when Ashley might appear. The IT department, without being asked, strengthened security protocols around Diana's files and communications. Even Jerome, the usually taciturn head of maintenance, played his part. "Funny thing," Mrs. Martinez mentioned one evening as Diana worked late. "Some woman's been asking about Mr. Martinez's visits to the building. I told her what you suggested, that he always attends the monthly charity planning meetings. She seemed real interested in that." The pieces were falling into place, each person in Diana's professional world unconsciously or deliberately contributing to her strategy. She hadn't needed to ask for their help. Years of treating everyone from partners to parking attendants with genuine respect had earned her a loyalty that no amount of money could buy. As the designated day approached, Diana maintained her usual routine with practiced ease. She handled high-stakes negotiations, mentored associates, and built her cases with the same methodical precision she was applying to her personal situation. The only visible change was the addition of a small clock on her desk, counting down the hours until Ashley's planned surprise visit. Mrs. Martinez, Sarah's voice carried a note of concern one afternoon. "There's something you should see." She handed over her tablet, displaying Ashley's latest Instagram story, a close-up of the Bentley's hood ornament with the caption "Time to show everyone what a real boss lady looks like. Surprise visit watch machine." Diana handed back the tablet, her expression serene. "Perfect timing. Sarah, please make sure the conference room blinds are open tomorrow during lunch hour. I believe we'll want natural lighting for what's about to unfold." "Of course," Sarah replied, a glimpse of understanding crossing her face. "Should I alert security about potential disruptions?" "No need," Diana said, turning back to her work. "Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. Oh, and Sarah, make sure the charity luncheon committee knows I'll be a few minutes late tomorrow. I have a rather important matter to handle first." The stage was set, the players were in position, and Diana Martinez, master strategist both in and out of the courtroom, prepared for the final act of her carefully orchestrated plan. Tomorrow would bring either chaos or clarity, and Diana had always excelled at turning chaos into opportunity. The morning of the confrontation dawned crisp and clear, Chicago's September air carrying the first hint of autumn. Diana's morning routine remained unchanged: a 5 a.m. workout, a perfectly pressed Dior suit, and her usual stop at the artisanal coffee shop across from Blackwood Associates. The barista noticed her extra tip but said nothing, perhaps sensing something significant in her more deliberate than usual movements. Across town, in her Lincoln Park apartment, Ashley Peterson was also preparing for what she believed would be her moment of triumph. She spent 3 hours getting ready, carefully crafting what she considered the perfect other woman victory look. A white Versace dress that cost more than her monthly rent, Christian Louboutin heels she'd guilted Michael into buying, and a diamond tennis bracelet that had required him to take out yet another loan. Time to show that stuck-up lawyer what a real woman looks like, Ashley murmured to her reflection, practicing her victory smirk. Her Instagram live session was already planned what to wear when you're claiming your kingdom. She didn't notice that half of her recent followers were dummy accounts created by Marcus's team, monitoring her every move. At Blackwood Associates, the morning hummed with unusual energy. Word had spread through the office's subtle grapevine that something was about to happen. Senior partners found reasons to leave their doors open. Paralegals scheduled their coffee breaks for lunch hour. Even the normally stoic security guard, Tony, seemed to be paying extra attention to the lobby monitors. Mrs. Martinez Sarah knocked softly on Diana's office door at 10 a.m. Everything's in place. The charity luncheon signs are posted in the lobby, directing guests to the 42nd floor. Mr. Blackwood asked if you needed anything. Diana looked up from her computer, where she'd been calmly reviewing merger documents. Just make sure everyone maintains their normal routine, Sarah. We wouldn't want our guest of honor to suspect anything's amiss. Sarah nodded, understanding the subtle instruction. As she returned to her desk, she noticed more colleagues than usual finding reasons to pass through their section of the floor. Rachel from corporate litigation had already walked by 3 times, ostensibly heading to the copy room. At 11:30, Marcus sent his final text target just posted from the Bentley dealership. Quote, "Some women get roses. Queens get keys to kingdoms, she's headed your way." Diana allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She stood at her window, watching the street below, knowing that somewhere in the traffic, a brand new Bentley Continental GT was carrying an overconfident yoga instructor toward a lesson she'd never forget. The office atmosphere grew increasingly charged as noon approached. Junior associates whispered behind case files. The normally efficient elevator banks seemed to operate with extra precision, as if the building itself was preparing for the coming drama. Security called Sarah's voice came through the intercom at 11:45. She's in the parking garage, taking selfies with the car. Diana straightened her desk, ensuring the property documents were within easy reach. She checked her reflection in the window, not a hair out of place, her expression composed and serene. Years of high-stakes negotiations had taught her that true power lay not in emotional displays but in absolute control. Down in the lobby, Tony watched Ashley strut through the security checkpoint, her white dress and excessive jewelry drawing every eye. "I'm here for the charity luncheon," she announced loudly, waving the invitation she'd found in Michael's email. "I'm sure Diana Martinez will be thrilled to see me." 42nd floor, Tony replied professionally, fighting back a smile. "Though I believe Mrs. Martinez is in meetings until noon." The elevator ride gave Ashley time to perfect her speech, the words she'd practiced for days. "I just wanted to thank you, Diana, for being such an understanding wife. Michael and I are so grateful for your generosity." She rehearsed her practiced hair flip, adjusted her designer dress, and checked her lipstick in the elevator's mirrored walls. Meanwhile, Diana sat at her desk, reviewing a final email from her divorce attorney confirming all paperwork was in order. The weight of the Bentley's true ownership documents felt satisfying in her hand. She could hear the office holding its collective breath, waiting for the show to begin. Sarah's final message came through. "She's here. Front elevator." Diana stood, smoothed her suit, and allowed herself the smallest of smiles. "Well then," she murmured, "let's not keep our guest waiting." The elevator doors opened at precisely 12:15 p.m., and Ashley Peterson stepped onto the 42nd floor like an actress making her grand entrance. Her heels clicked against the marble flooring in a deliberate rhythm, each step calculated to draw attention. The white Versace dress caught the sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating an almost theatrical effect. "I'm looking for Diana Martinez," she announced to the reception area, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent office. Several heads poked out of cubicles, and a young associate nearly dropped his coffee cup. Sarah stood from her desk, maintaining perfect professional composure. "Mrs. Martinez is right here." Diana's voice cut through the tension as she emerged from her office. elegant in her charcoal Dior suit. "How can I help you, Ms. Peterson?" Ashley's practiced smirk faltered slightly at Diana's calm demeanor, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, I just thought I'd stop by and show you something." She dangled the Bentley keys from her manicured fingers. "Your husband has excellent taste, doesn't he?" The office had gone completely still. Even the usual sounds of typing and phone calls had ceased. A small crowd had gathered, trying to appear busy while watching the drama unfold. The Continental GT Ashley continued, gaining confidence from her audience. "Michael said I deserved something special. Something worthy of the woman he really loves." She took a step closer to Diana. "I hope you understand. It's nothing personal. Sometimes a man just needs to upgrade to a newer model." A soft gasp came from somewhere in the background. Rachel, the junior partner, had positioned herself near Sarah's desk, her phone discreetly recording everything. Diana's smile never wavered. The Bentley Continental GT is indeed a beautiful car. Black exterior, red leather interior, custom wheels. Her specific knowledge seemed to catch Ashley off guard. "I should know. I picked out every detail myself." Ashley's triumphant expression flickered. "What are you talking about?" "Michael bought it for me. I believe there's been a misunderstanding." Diana opened the folder she'd been holding and removed a document. "This is the bill of sale for the Bentley Continental GT, dated last week. You'll notice it's in my name, purchased with my personal funds." The color drained from Ashley's face as she stared at the document. "That's impossible," Michael said. "Michael has said many things, hasn't he?" Diana's voice carried just enough sympathy to twist the knife deeper. "About the house in the Hamptons? The winters in St. Bart's? The future you'd have together?" Ashley's hands began to tremble. In the growing silence, the sound of a text message alert seemed thunderous. Diana glanced at her phone. "Ah, perfect timing. That's from my private investigator. He's just confirmed that Michael's company filed for bankruptcy protection this morning. Those credit cards you've been using," she shook her head sadly. "All maxed out. The loans he took out to buy your gifts. Default notices went out yesterday." "You're lying," Ashley whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "The car keys, please." Diana held out her hand. "Unless you'd prefer I call the police and report it stolen?" Grand theft auto is a serious charge, especially given the vehicle's value. Ashley's carefully constructed world crumbled visibly. Tears began to streak her expensive makeup as she stared at the keys in her hand. The audience of law firm employees watched in fascinated silence as reality set in. He promised." Her voice broke. "Yes, he did." Diana's tone remained professional, almost kind. "But promises don't pay for Bentleys, Ms. Peterson. Neither does karma, as it turns out." With trembling fingers, Ashley dropped the keys into Diana's outstretched hand. Mascara running down her cheeks, she turned and fled toward the elevators. The sharp click of her Louboutins faded into quiet sobs as the doors closed behind her. The office remained frozen for a moment before erupting into barely contained chaos. Whispers and suppressed exclamations filled the air. Sarah quickly began shooing people back to their desks, while Rachel tucked her phone away with a satisfied smile. "Well," Diana addressed her colleagues calmly, "I believe we all have work to return to. Sarah, please have my usual lunch delivered. I have a conference call at 1. As the crowd dispersed, James Blackwood emerged from his office, a rare smile on his typically stern face. "Masterfully handled, Diana. I don't suppose you'd consider moving into our litigation department." Diana smiled, tucking the keys into her desk drawer. "Thank you, James, but I prefer corporate law. Less drama." Through the windows, she could see Ashley's Instagram-worthy entrance turning into a walk of shame as she crossed the lobby below. Already, her phone was buzzing with a message from Michael. "We need to talk." "Yes," she typed back, "we do. My lawyers will be in touch." The morning's theater was over, but Diana knew this was just the beginning. She had cases to win, a divorce to finalize, and a career to advance. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Sometimes justice didn't need a courtroom, sometimes it just needed the right audience, the right timing, and a perfectly executed plan. "Sarah," she called out, "let's get back to that merger agreement. After all, we still have a full day ahead of US. The weeks following the confrontation transformed Blackwood Associates in subtle but significant ways. Diana's handling of the situation became the stuff of office legend, whispered about in break rooms and referenced in knowing glances. Junior associates began requesting transfers to her department, eager to learn from a woman who could orchestrate victory with such precision. Michael's attempts to salvage his dignity proved futile. The bankruptcy filing became public record, and Chicago's tight-knit business community buzzed with rumors of his downfall. When he finally appeared at Diana's office to sign the divorce papers, he could barely meet her eyes. "I never meant for it to end like this," he mumbled, pen hovering over the documents. "No one ever does," Diana replied simply. "But endings are just new beginnings in disguise." The divorce proceedings were remarkably straightforward. Michael, faced with mounting debts and the collapse of his company, accepted Diana's terms without protest. She was fair but firm. She kept the house, her investments, and of course the Bentley. In a final act of mercy, she agreed not to pursue legal action over his unauthorized use of her personal funds. Ashley's dramatic exit from Chicago's social scene played out across social media. Her final Instagram post, "Taking time to realign my chakras and find my authentic truth spiritual journey new beginnings," garnered knowing comments from those who'd witnessed her downfall. Within a week, she had closed her yoga studio and booked a one-way ticket to Bali, where she claimed to be studying ancient wisdom but was actually teaching English at a local school. At Blackwood Associates, Diana's professional star rose even higher. James Blackwood himself announced her promotion to senior partner during the firm's annual retreat. "In all my years," he said during the ceremony, "I've never seen someone handle both professional and personal challenges with such grace and strategic thinking." Diana Martinez represents everything our firm stands for: intelligence, integrity, and indomitable spirit. Sarah was promoted to senior executive assistant, with a corner desk and her own junior assistant. The office dynamics shifted permanently. Diana became not just respected but revered, a living example of how to turn adversity into advantage. The Bentley remained in Diana's reserved parking space, though she rarely drove it. "Consider it a trophy," she told Sarah with a smile. "Not a victory over them, but a victory over myself. I could have chosen revenge, but I chose justice instead." The story might have ended there, but fate had other plans. 6 months after the confrontation, Diana received an unexpected letter. It was from Ashley, postmarked from Bali. "I wanted to hate you." And the letter read, "But I realize now that you taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. True power isn't in taking what belongs to others, it's in creating something of your own. I'm finally doing that here, in helping others instead of taking from them. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." Diana placed the letter in her desk drawer, next to the Bentley keys and her senior partner certificate. Each item told part of her story, not just of a woman wronged, but of a woman who had turned betrayal into triumph through intelligence and grace. As Chicago's winter melted into spring, Diana found herself mentoring more young women at the firm, sharing not just legal expertise but life wisdom. Success isn't about avoiding problems, she would tell them. It's about choosing how to solve them. And sometimes the most powerful move isn't the most obvious one. The Bentley eventually went to a women's shelter auction, raising enough money to fund their programs for a year. Diana drove her trusted Mercedes to work instead, no longer needing physical reminders of her victory. She had something far more valuable: the knowledge that she had faced one of life's most painful challenges and emerged stronger, wiser, and more herself than ever before. 1 year after the confrontation, Diana stood at her office window, watching the sunset paint Chicago's skyline in shades of gold and purple. The view from the 50th floor, her new senior partner office, offered an even more commanding perspective of the city she'd conquered both personally and professionally. She thought about how life's greatest tests often came disguised as its cruelest jokes. The woman who'd tried to destroy her marriage had inadvertently helped her discover her true strength. The husband who'd betrayed her had ultimately freed her to become more fully herself. What had seemed like an ending had become a powerful new beginning. The firm had changed too. Under Diana's influence, Blackwood Associates had implemented a mentorship program for young female lawyers, teaching them not just legal strategy but life wisdom. Power isn't about controlling others, she'd tell them, it's about mastering yourself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Now the firm's chief of staff just saw Michael's company finally sold. barely covered the debts. You were right about everything." Diana smiled, not from satisfaction at her ex-husband's comeuppance, but from the realization that his actions no longer had any power to affect her. She had learned that true victory wasn't in destroying your opponents, but in rising so far above them that their actions became irrelevant. As she gathered her things to leave for the day, Diana caught her reflection in the window, confident, serene, complete. She had discovered that sometimes life's greatest gifts came wrapped in its deepest wounds, and that dignity, intelligence, and strategic patience were more powerful than any act of revenge. The sun's final rays caught the diamond on her new ring, a gift to herself to mark her senior partnership. It sparkled with the same brilliance as her future, reminding her that the best chapters of her story were still waiting to be written.